Okay, welcome. Basically, I'm making this short video, very ad hoc, because I wanted to save you guys some time. So I am a second year medical student, and hopefully you found this video before you've gone to med school, because when you go to med school, you've got a lot to learn. Not only do you have to learn the language of medicine, which is like, words you might have not heard before, anterior, posterior, superior, inferior, just like the language. The second thing is you've got to learn a lot of content and a different type of content to things that you might have done, for example, in college or A-levels. And then you've also got to learn how to learn. And the reason I say that is, please don't make the mistake of going into med school thinking that you can learn the same way that you did for college or GCSEs or whatever you've done to get here. You cannot do it the same way. You cannot spend the same amount of time as you did making flashcards. I mean, I, for one, made flashcards every day. I'd come home, so at college, right from the start, I'd come home and I'd start making flashcards on what I learned in that lesson. I'd make notes, and then I'd make the notes, and then before I went to an exam, the period leading up to like a mini test, I'd make flashcards and kind of do it that way. That would just take way too long, okay? So right now I have like 20,000 flashcards first and second year. So you cannot do it the same way that you did for A-levels, basically. I would really not recommend making notes. Notes are not useful. I'm sure you've heard this about a bazillion times already, but when you have so much to learn, you cannot afford to use methods of learning that don't really work. I know people say that, making notes works for me. It's just not true. So, if you were to make notes of everything that you learn in medicine, one, you wouldn't be able to, because you wouldn't be able to keep up, and you definitely wouldn't be able to make them pretty. I remember at A-level there were some people who took pride in making their notes look super pretty, and it's such a waste of time, and there would be way too much. So how do you learn with medicine? And basically you've got one decision. You basically got one choice. And the people like me who thought they could do it the same way they did with A-levels very quickly switched. So basically, rather than making notes, you're going to make flashcards straight away. And you're not going to use paper flashcards, and you're not going to buy flashcards. So I have some with me right now that I bought in the first term in first year, and I haven't used them once. And you're thinking, but Moores is an amazing brand. That's the company that made the one of the biggest sort of clinical anatomy textbooks. Yeah, I've literally never used these. It's such a waste of money. I think it was like 30 quid. They're like pristine condition. But so save yourself a bit of money with that. The other thing is, people might think, can you do past paper questions? Well, past papers sort of exist for medicine. The thing is, each uni, as I understand, makes their own questions for the exam. It is overseen by the GMC in the UK and probably some overseeing body in other countries. But you cannot use just past paper questions. There's not enough. And sometimes, like my university, for example, I'm pretty sure they don't even send us past paper questions. You can use, I think there's a couple of websites that use them. I think one of them's QuesMed. That's one I used for my first year exams a little bit. And that was good. It cost a bit of money. You can use that, I think, for US MLE as well if you want to move to the US and study over there. But basically, your day-to-day learning is going to be done using either Anki or Remnote. There may be other options, but Anki and Remnote are the ones that everyone at my university uses. And of those two, Remnote's the best, okay? So there was one of my friends who came to med school using Remnote, and he got the top of the year Yes, of course, he put in loads more work than the average person as well, but it just goes to show. And the people who did Anki did a lot better as well. So what is Anki and RemNote? So Anki and RemNote are basically a piece of software where you can make flashcards, and each day you do the flashcards. So once you've made the flashcards, you then have to revise them. And depending on how well you knew them, so each time you get shown a flashcard, it will be like, when you get shown the answer, you rank how well you knew it, so completely forgot or kind of sort of knew, etc., etc. And depending on how highly you remembered it, or how highly you ranked that you remembered it, it will ask you that same question again in a certain period of time. So if you forgot the card, then in like 1 minute's time, it will ask you that. It will show you that same flashcard. But if you remembered it a little bit, it might show you in 12 hours, or it might show you in 24 hours, or it might show you in 4 days. And then let's say in 4 days' time, I also remembered it really well again, then it will, the next time it will show me in 16 days or 24, whatever. It will ramp up, and so eventually, if it's something that you know really well, it will show you in 6 months or a year or something like ridiculous like that. So basically your goal using one of these apps is to try and get your number of flashcards that you need to view to 0 every day. And so far, I don't think I've ever met someone that's actually found that possible, because there's just so much. So you have to be quite specific. You have to be quite intelligent about what you are trying to learn. So how much content is there? How much detail to go into? And you kind of get a feel for it, especially after you've done a couple of exams, because with medicine, someone told me once that back in the 1800s, if, this circle, like a Venn diagram, was everything that was possible to know about medicine, then you might be able to learn like a third of that circle back in the 1800s. Nowadays, if you spent your entire life learning about medicine, you could maybe learn less than 1% of everything that's possible to know. It's just, and as I'm sure you're aware, things are constantly growing and changing. So you can't stay on top of everything. You won't be able to learn everything. You need to be specific. And so one way that me and a group of friends kind of devised, it was figureheaded by the guy who brought RemNote to our university. He basically, what some people used for their notes was, there was a Google Drive, and the Google Drive was being shared around, and it was notes that someone made a few years ago. So somewhat relevant, mostly relevant stuff. And everyone knows in the uni I go to, also the med school that I go to, everyone knows about these notes. And they were ones that someone else made, and they got shared to us. And what we did is we just spent the entire summer and Christmas holidays making the flashcards for the entire year. And so with RemNote, all you need to do to make a flashcard, if it's Word, is you double click the sort of arrow button, and it turns it into a flashcard. And so it didn't really take that long to convert all of the notes for the entire year, whole of second year, into flashcards. So we have a whole year's notes basically. And obviously the content changes slightly from year to year. So all we do now is, rather than watching the lectures, we literally watch no lectures. We just go through the PowerPoints of the lectures and convert and just add the bits and take out bits that we don't need. This won't be a tutorial on how to use RemNote. If you do decide to get RemNote, then there's plenty of stuff on YouTube on how to do that, how to use it. But the reason that I would suggest using RemNote rather than Anki is just because in RemNote it's kind of more visually pleasing, and I think it's a bit easier to use as well as having one or two features which make it a bit better. So the first thing that's better about RemNote than Anki is that Anki works on iPad, and I know a lot of people at university use iPads. Like, I'm recording on an iPad right now, hence the terrible quality. So RemNote works on iPad. There is an Anki app. It's not actually owned by the Anki company. It's and it charges you 20 quid, even though Anki is free. So that is a positive for Anki. Anki is free. If you get it on the iPad though, it costs 20 quid, and it's not even by the real company, so it's not supported properly. You can't actually make notes that well. So if you have an iPad, Anki's out of the question for you, sorry. RemNote, another thing that's positive about RemNote is that it displays the notes out quite nicely for you. So it you can actually, it's kind of folders within folders, and you go in and you can actually see everything as notes, whereas in Anki you can't see all of your flashcards as notes. So there's kind of like a crossover there between notes and flashcards, if notes is sort of your thing as well. Also with RemNote, there's a PDF reader in there, which is amazing because all you have to do is highlight so imagine you've got on one half of your screen over here, you've got your PDF of your lecture slides, and then this side you have the notes or / flashcards that you're making, and you literally just, if it's a picture, you can highlight the picture, and then that goes straight into your notes. You can also highlight text and put that straight in your notes, straight from the PDF, which is amazing. And the other thing, the reason why I'd use either Anki or RemNote rather than Quizlet, which you might have heard of, is one, Quizlet doesn't have spaced repetition, which is that thing where it asks you in a certain intervals of time, but also it doesn't have something called image occlusion. So image occlusion is amazing for anatomy. So if I was to get one of these I'll show you a picture of it on the screen. So image occlusion is if you have an anatomy picture, let's say it's of, the leg or something like that, and it's like a diagram, so it's got little arrows coming off saying what each of the things are. In RemNote and Anki, you can cover up the name of the thing that's being labelled, and you can and then it will ask you that as a flashcard, so it will present it as the picture with a highlighted box covering the name of the thing that the arrow is pointing to, and then the flashcard is when you press the spacebar or whatever, it uncovers it and you can see whether you got that right. And Quizlet doesn't have that, as far as I know. I think only Anki and RemNote do that properly. So if I was to just be really, really sort of specific with what you need to do, I'm basically telling you to do this, because otherwise you'll have to find out the hard way like me and loads of other people did and waste loads of time. It would be find notes from the people in the years above. Hopefully they have RemNotes, because if you have RemNote and someone's made RemNotes for the whole of year one, then amazing. That's so little work that you have to do, so much less work. If not, it might just be a PDF of 1,000 notes or whatever, and you're just gonna need to turn that into flashcards in your own time and change things. Please do change things. Don't blindly follow what someone else has written, because it's like Chinese whispers and could change. So find that PDF, convert it into notes, use RemNote, don't use some other weird company. No offense, sponsor me if you want. Use image occlusion, and try and get those flashcards down to 0 every day, because that's the way you're gonna learn it. If there's anything that you would like me to kind of explain specifically about RemNote, or anything you think I might have missed, just whack it in the comments, because I'm sure that will be useful to other people. Yeah.